What if America's most trusted allies, countries it stood beside for decades, suddenly began shifting their loyalty north? Not to Russia, not to China, to Canada. Trade deals, military partnerships, billion-dollar science and energy moves, all happening under Washington's nose. Why are US allies turning to Canada? And why isn't anyone talking about it? Number 10. Germany. Germany, once America's ironclad NATO partner, is now building hospitals in Alberta instead of Arizona. You heard that right. In 2025, Germany's Siemens Healthineers has invested over $200 million into Alberta's healthcare system. That includes 2 state-of-the-art cancer centers, cutting-edge research labs, and a medical fund with long-term ambitions. This isn't charity, it's strategy. Germany sees what's coming. A calm, stable, innovation-driven Canada. No political whiplash. No shutdown threats. When you're deciding where to park billions, would you choose chaos in DC or quiet growth in Calgary? Number 9. United Kingdom. The UK, America's partner in wars, intelligence, and history, just moved one of its biggest science bets to Canada. AstraZeneca, the pharmaceutical giant behind a top COVID-19 vaccine, dropped £460 million into a new research hub in Toronto. That's over $700 million and 700 high-skilled jobs. In Canada, not the US. Why? Because UK leaders are watching the US implode in political theatre, while Canada offers scientific clarity and policy consistency. Before we move on, hit that like button, subscribe, and share this video. You're going to want to see who's next. It only gets wilder. Number 8. Japan. Japan, one of America's most loyal allies in the Pacific, is now making billion-dollar energy deals, and Washington's nowhere in sight. In early 2025, Japan signed a landmark agreement with Canada's Institute for Clean Energy and the First Nations LNG Alliance. The mission: secure long-term access to Canada's liquefied natural gas, a cleaner, cheaper, and more stable alternative to oil from the Middle East. But this isn't just about fuel. It's about strategy. Japan is now investing in Canadian port upgrades, Arctic shipping access, and even rare earth mineral supply chains, critical resources for everything from EVs to advanced weaponry. At the same time, it's funneling money into Canada's booming AI sector, partnering with universities and tech hubs in Toronto and Vancouver. Why is Japan making this pivot? Because Canada offers something the US doesn't right now: political calm, policy stability, and a forward-looking economy that isn't held hostage by daily chaos. While Washington debates TikTok and culture wars, Japan is quietly rewriting its future, and it's drawing the map through Canada. This isn't a breakup, it's a realignment, and Japan's message is clear. The future is north. Number 7. Finland. Finland, a country better known for reindeer, education, and ice saunas, is now at the heart of a bold, quiet revolution in the Arctic. And it starts with Canada. In mid-2024, Canada and Finland signed what they call the Ice Pact, short for Icebreaker Collaboration Effort. Sounds friendly, but behind the acronym is a game-changing Arctic alliance, one with serious military and geopolitical implications. This isn't about melting glaciers or sipping cocoa in snow-covered cabins. This is about Arctic dominance. Together, Finland and Canada are developing a new generation of military-grade icebreakers, ships that can plow through thick ice where most vessels freeze and fail. These aren't cargo ships, they're strategic platforms: surveillance, defense, energy exploration, all rolled into a single vessel. And here's the twist: these ships are being built in Canadian yards, using Finnish cold weather technology, bypassing US contractors completely. Meanwhile, the US, which once claimed the Arctic as its strategic backyard, is still tangled in bureaucratic delays and outdated fleet upgrades. American icebreakers are aging relics. Many were built during the Cold War. One of them literally dates back to the disco era. Finland, on the other hand, is decades ahead when it comes to Arctic engineering. Their icebreakers are trusted across Europe, and now they're bringing that expertise directly to Canada, not Washington. This partnership is more than just hardware. It's about control of the Arctic. Together, Finland and Canada are creating a new corridor of power, one that could unlock untapped energy reserves, establish year-round trade routes, and give them a strategic edge as the Arctic melts and opens. And the US? It wasn't even invited to the table. Why is Finland turning to Canada? Simple: cleaner contracts, faster execution, no political circus, just quiet, serious collaboration, built for long-term impact. Finland may be small, but it's not naive. It sees the Arctic as the next frontier, and it's betting that Canada, not the US, is the key to shaping what happens there. This is what happens when allies stop waiting on Washington. They start building their future elsewhere. And in the case of Finland, that future cuts through ice, over silence, and right past America's blind spot. Number 6. Italy. Italy, the land of Leonardo, luxury cars, and long-standing NATO loyalty, is quietly redrawing its defense playbook. And this time, the United States isn't even on the page. In 2025, Italy's Ministry of Defense made an unexpected move. It reached out to Ottawa, not Washington, with a bold proposal: let's build the future of warfare together. This wasn't some minor supply deal. This was a full-blown joint weapons platform offer, a proposal to co-develop next-generation submarines, stealth technologies, and naval systems between Italy and Canada. And here's the part that sent quiet ripples through defense circles. US defense giants like Boeing and Lockheed Martin were completely bypassed. Instead, Italian defense firms, known for their precision, innovation, and speed, are now pitching custom-designed submarines built for Canada's cold waters. They're offering shared production in Canadian shipyards, joint R&D centers, and technology transfer without the strings that often come attached to US military contracts. Why? Because Italy, like many of America's allies, is frustrated. Frustrated by Pentagon bureaucracy. Frustrated by never-ending paperwork, policy reversals, and a Congress that can't pass a budget without a meltdown. In contrast, Canada offers something Italy values more than ever: consistency. When Rome looks at Ottawa, it sees a partner that still plays by the rules. A government that doesn't change its defense posture every election cycle. A country that can green-light a project and actually follow through. And there's another layer to this: symbolism. Italy has been part of NATO since the beginning. It fought shoulder to shoulder with the US in Afghanistan. It hosts American bases. It buys American weapons. But now, it's saying, we're ready for alternatives. By choosing Canada, Italy is not only diversifying its defense partnerships, it's sending a message. A message that Europe is no longer content to follow Washington's lead without question. A message that even the oldest allies are looking for new options, new collaborators, and new centers of stability. And in 2025, that center looks increasingly like Canada. This isn't just a defense deal. It's a realignment of trust. Canada is gaining influence not because it's louder, richer, or more powerful, but because it's more predictable, more transparent, and easier to work with. Italy's move may seem small now, but when allies start shifting their weapons production, their tech, their jobs, away from the US, that's not just business. That's a warning. Washington may still call the shots on paper, but in the real world, allies like Italy are quietly building a future, without waiting for America's approval. Number 5. South Korea. South Korea, once under America's nuclear umbrella, is now developing guided missile tech in Toronto. No press conferences, no headlines, just $1 billion defense pact signed in silence. In 2025, South Korea and Canada agreed to co-develop radar systems, drone swarms, and AI missile platforms, all made on Canadian soil. Meanwhile, Korean tech giants like Samsung and Hyundai are expanding in Toronto and Vancouver faster than anywhere in the US. This isn't a test. It's a long-term move away from the volatility of Washington. Number 4. The Netherlands. The Netherlands, a nation so small it could fit inside California nearly 7 times, quietly holds the master key to the global tech economy: semiconductors. And in 2025, that key took a sharp turn. Instead of deepening its footprint in Silicon Valley, the traditional mecca of innovation, Dutch tech giant ASML made a startling move. It chose Toronto. That's right, the most important chip-making company in the world, the one that produces the $200 million extreme ultraviolet lithography machines used to manufacture cutting-edge microchips, is now investing in Canada, not the United States. This wasn't about saving money. It wasn't about proximity. It was about something far more strategic: stability. For years, the Dutch watched America spiral: partisan standoffs, budget brinkmanship, industrial subsidies lost in congressional warfare. Every time the US government came close to a shutdown, so did trust in its long-term tech partnerships. So in 2025, ASML quietly announced its next chapter: a deep tech research hub in Toronto, backed by the Canadian government, supported by fast-track permits and staffed with a pipeline of PhD talent from Canada's world-class universities. The message was unmistakable. Canada is becoming a serious player in global innovation, because it can deliver what America no longer guarantees. But here's what most headlines missed. It's not just about chips. The Netherlands is also turning Canada into its climate innovation laboratory. Dutch agricultural giants, think Wageningen university-linked startups and vertical farming leaders, are now experimenting in Alberta and British Columbia, not Kansas or Nebraska. They're testing AI-enhanced greenhouses, genetically adaptive crops, water-optimized soil systems designed to withstand droughts and floods. In the heart of Canada's prairies and mountain ranges, Dutch agri-tech is future-proofing global food systems. Why? Because for the Netherlands, a low-lying country already battling rising seas, climate resilience isn't a theoretical debate. It's a matter of survival. And in Canada, they've found a partner that believes in the science, funds the research, and builds real infrastructure, not just political soundbites. So let's call this what it is: a quiet, strategic recalibration. The Netherlands isn't breaking up with America, but it's no longer waiting on Washington to figure things out. It's building parallel tracks, alternative routes, new alliances, ones that aren't held hostage by cable news cycles and election year volatility. Canada, with its calmer politics, stable regulations, and growing international trust, has become the place where high-stakes plans can actually be executed. When the country that holds the keys to the future of both chips and crops starts shifting its loyalty, it's not noise. It's a signal. And that signal says, we're still allies with America, but we're betting on Canada. Because in a world where chaos is becoming currency, Canada offers a rare kind of value: calm, competence, and long-term vision. And that's what the Dutch, and the world, are buying into. Number 3. France. France, a nuclear power, a permanent member of the UN Security Council, and one of America's oldest allies, is quietly stepping back from its Atlantic partner. And stepping closer to its northern neighbor, Canada. It didn't start with a press release or a grand announcement. It started with energy and silence. In early 2025, France made a bold move. Instead of expanding its clean energy future alongside the United States, the traditional partner in all things industrial and strategic, it inked a multi-billion euro deal with Hydro-Quebec. Yes, Hydro-Quebec, Canada's crown jewel of renewable energy. The deal, a sweeping partnership to co-develop next-generation green hydrogen infrastructure, smart energy grids, and export frameworks between France and Canada, designed to power European cities with Canadian energy. And the US, completely out of the picture. But this wasn't just about plugging into clean electricity. It was about who France trusts to power its future. In Washington, energy policy swings wildly with every election. Climate commitments stall in partisan deadlock, and foreign partners get caught in the chaos. In Ottawa, France found regulatory calm, climate leadership, and predictability. 3 things it no longer sees in Washington. And the shift doesn't stop at kilowatts. France's aerospace titan, Dassault Aviation, maker of the Rafale fighter jet, has opened talks with Ottawa to co-produce aerospace components, right on Canadian soil. That's defense tech, previously reserved for European or US partnerships, now heading north. Meanwhile, French universities are expanding research programs in Montreal. And in a particularly bold move, the French government just approved a funding package to support AI startups relocating to Toronto, calling it a strategic move to secure transatlantic innovation. Let that sink in. France, a G7 nation with deep-rooted ties to the US, is actively channeling talent, capital, and military-grade R&D away from America and toward Canada. Not because of hostility, but because of uncertainty. The French aren't looking for drama. They're looking for long-term cooperation. And Canada is offering something that, right now, America can't: a stable political climate, functional institutions, and a collaborative tone. This isn't a betrayal, it's an evolution. France is diversifying its alliances, not severing them. It still trades with the US, still shares intelligence, still cooperates militarily. But it's no longer betting everything on Washington. Instead, it's building a future that runs through Quebec's hydro dams, Toronto's AI labs, and Canada's Arctic access points. If you're in DC and you're still thinking of France as a sure thing, think again. Because right now, France is showing the world that even the oldest allies can make new choices. And those choices, they're pointing north. Number 2. Australia. Two best friends. Same threats. Same defense pacts. Then one quietly changes partners, and never looks back. For decades, Australia and the United States moved in lockstep, from joint military operations to satellite sharing, from war games in the Pacific to diplomatic missions in lockstep. They were Five Eyes allies, Indo-Pacific sentinels, and ironclad friends. But in 2025, Australia made a move that caught Washington completely off guard. It turned north, to Canada. Behind the scenes, Australia and Canada are now building a new generation of satellite surveillance and orbital defense systems, and they're doing it without a single American contractor. We're talking shared Arctic control stations, joint orbital tracking hubs, and surveillance satellites built and operated from Canadian territory. Quietly, precisely, deliberately, these are not weather satellites. These are military-grade eyes in the sky, systems once exclusive to US-Australian cooperation. Now, the control panels are being installed in the Canadian North, under joint flags that do not include the stars and stripes. Why the shift? Because Australia's watching America unravel. In Washington, military budgets stall. Space policy changes every administration. And geopolitical cooperation, always subject to the next election cycle. Canada, by contrast, is quiet, capable, and increasingly influential, a country that gets the job done without the drama. But it's not just satellites. Australia's most strategic sector, rare earth mining, is now pumping billions into Quebec, not Nevada or Texas. These are the minerals that power everything from smartphones to guided missiles. And Australia, one of the world's biggest rare earth producers, is betting that Canada can process, refine, and regulate better than the US. Why? Because Canada offers cleaner regulations, environmental consistency, and most crucially, strong Indigenous partnerships that aren't just for show. Ottawa works with local First Nations. Washington often works around them. And then came the Climate Pact. In a quiet diplomatic snub, Australia recently invited Canada, not the US, into a new regional climate agreement, a high-level framework focused on emissions, renewable energy cooperation, and resource protection. The United States, not even given observer status. Subtle, not exactly. This is a shift, not a headline. It didn't come with press conferences or flag waving. It came with contract signatures, data uplinks, and investment flows, all quietly rerouted toward Canada. Australia isn't angry. It's not abandoning the US entirely. But it is hedging its future, building a backup plan that leans less on Washington and more on a partner that still shows up, delivers, and doesn't implode over Twitter posts or midterm elections. And if America isn't paying attention, it should be. Because when your best friend starts building missile tracking satellites and rare earth pipelines with someone else, it's not just business. It's a message. And in 2025, that message is clear. Australia still shares values with the US, but it sees Canada as the partner with the clearest path forward. Number 1. India. They called it a strategic partnership. For years, India and the United States were hailed as two of the world's largest democracies marching together, counterbalancing China, strengthening the Indo-Pacific, and advancing global cooperation. But in 2025, something changed. And it wasn't announced. It wasn't televised. It was done in silence. While US officials delivered speeches about deepening ties, India was busy signing billion-dollar deals with Canada. Energy pipelines, green hydrogen partnerships, semiconductor fabrication plants, joint AI-powered military tech, all quietly inked with Ottawa, while Washington was still caught up in surveillance accusations, trade tensions, and stalled visa talks. India didn't wait for press conferences. It just moved. State-owned energy giants like ONGC and Indian Oil are now pouring billions into British Columbia's LNG terminals, bypassing Texas and Alaska entirely. Why? Because Canada's regulations are cleaner, its infrastructure more secure, and its Pacific access more efficient. Infosys and Tata Consultancy Services, two of India's biggest tech titans, are expanding faster in Vancouver and Toronto than in Silicon Valley. They're opening AI labs, hiring Canadian graduates, and forming partnerships with Canadian universities to shape the next generation of talent. And behind the scenes, Indian defense firms are lobbying to co-develop drone systems, radar platforms, and battlefield AI tools inside Canada. That's not symbolic, that's systemic. It's a realignment. India isn't ditching the US, not publicly. But it's quietly redistributing its trust, diversifying its alliances, and making it very clear, It's no longer willing to wait for Washington to get its house in order. And the message couldn't be louder. India is building a future, with or without America. Canada, meanwhile, is stepping into a role it never sought, but now finds itself perfectly positioned to fill. The quiet anchor of global democratic cooperation. It doesn't shout, it doesn't dominate, but it delivers, with calm policy, strong institutions, and a growing reputation for getting things done without political theater. For India, like, subscribe, and share this video. Because if these silent shifts shocked you, you won't believe what's coming next.